Hi, hello, welcome to The Rhetorical Reader. I'm Michael, and this is my first YouTube video, so I have no real idea what I'm doing, but we're going to get through this together. I've been wanting to join the BookTube community for a while now, and I finally decided to take the plunge. So I thought, what better place to start than with the Newbie tag, as it seemed like a pretty good template to just introduce myself. So let's go. Question number 1. Why did you start this channel? This is a bit of an awkward answer, but for the last 10 years or so, depression has completely stolen reading from me. It completely stole my joy of reading. It completely stole my ability to read. And it was discovering BookTube channels on YouTube that gave reading back to me. I specifically stumbled across the channel Lexi, aka Newly Nova, and her video where she breaks down the book Credence. And I enjoyed that so much that I just, fell into that rabbit hole, started watching more, and found a community of people who are just really having fun around books. And I loved that. So I wanted to dive into it. And so this is going to be my outlet, because I don't really have a big community of readers around myself, a big book community around myself. So this is just a way for me to talk about books and get my thoughts out of my head and into the world. Question number 2. What are some fun or unique things that you bring to YouTube? The aforementioned depression makes it kind of hard for me to actually sell myself and talk about myself as unique, but I do think that some of the things that I will probably bring to this channel, one is I'm kind of a contrarian. Some of the things that other people really love, I'm probably not going to, and some of the things that a lot of people hate, I will probably end up accidentally loving. So that's sort of just the way it goes for me. So we'll explore that together as we go along. The other thing that I want to bring to the channel a little bit is, since I was 7 years old, I have been a gamer. I've been into tabletop role-playing games that whole time, and it's been my second love behind reading in my life. And so this is a book channel. It's not a gaming channel, but gaming will sneak in. You'll hear me talk about it sometimes. But for now, that's just something that you should know colors my thoughts. Question number 3. What are you most excited about for your channel? As I mentioned before, being an outlet, just getting my thoughts out into the world, having a chance to talk about books in a way that maybe someone else hears it and resonates with it, that's great. I'm super excited about that. And maybe someday, if I can keep this up and it goes well, maybe I build a little bit of a community here, and that would be absolutely the dream. But that's for the future. For right now, just excited to have a place to talk. Question number 4. Why do you love reading? I'm going to keep this really simple. I could ramble about this forever, and I'm sure that as I go on, I probably will. But for now, I just want to say, human creativity is the true magic in this world, and that's why I love reading. That's why I love all art. And so, yeah, it's magic. Question number 5. What book series got you into reading? That is impossible for me to say. There have been so many wonderful reading experiences across my lifetime. But I did want to shout out specifically, when I was a kid, the Berenstain Bears book, The Spooky Old Tree, was probably my most read children's book. I had that thing out of the library every single time I could get it. And I mean, I loved that book. I spent hours poring over that book and its little twisty passages and its little suits of armor and all that kind of stuff. It really stands out in my head from my childhood. I would say, when I think about series though, and I think about really getting into a series and really being kind of obsessed with series, my first fixation was probably The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. That was the series that completely just opened up fantasy for me and just really turned me into a lifelong fantasy lover. So that would be what I'd probably credit as like my first really big series fixation. Question number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktuber? I would be entirely too socially anxious and awkward around anyone that I met who I watched their channels to actually ask them real questions. Anxiety is a killer. But I think that the thing that I'm most fascinated about that other channels do that I really gravitate towards and I love watching myself, but I don't know how you could possibly have the stamina to do it, is making long form content. You know, a 2-hour, 3-hour deep dive into a series or a novel or something like that. I would just love to know how they find the energy and the stamina to make that kind of long form content. Question number 7. What challenges will be the hardest with BookTube? This one's easy. Technology, perfectionism, and depression. I really get into places where my depression kind of rules my life for a while, and it is exacerbated by the feeling that I have to do everything perfect the first time. I really have struggled making this video because I have to do something perfect every time, and I know this was not going to be perfect. And when I don't know how to use the technology, or I'm struggling to learn the technology, and I especially know that it's not going to be perfect that first time, it makes it really, really hard to just dive in and do it. So those 3 things are going to combine to really create the challenge that I'll have to start out. Technology, perfectionism, and depression. Yes. Question number 8. When did you start reading? 1873 is what it feels like. I don't know exactly when I started reading. I would say that it was incredibly young. I was, as I'm sure a lot of people who gravitate towards BookTube, I was one of those precocious kids who just wanted to read all the time. My favorite thing was going to the library. I was that kid who made friends with the librarian and just wanted to spend hours rummaging through the books. And so, yeah, really, really young. Like, a lot of my earliest memories are the library and reading and going through stacks of books that my parents would bring home. So, yeah, really young. Question number 9. Where do you read? This one makes me sad because honestly, I do most of my reading on my lunch breaks at work. I do not have a lot of time for reading outside of that, and I struggle to make more time for reading outside of that, but that's a time that I really carve out. Just 9 to 5 office job, shut the door, read for an hour. It's the best part of the day, right? Question number 10. What kind of books do you read? I will read almost anything. Fantasy, as I've mentioned, is my first love. I still adore fantasy, though, again, as I move through making videos on this channel, I'm sure that you will see that my tastes have diverged probably somewhat from the modern big names in fantasy. But definitely fantasy is my first love. I also like sci-fi, but I like sci-fi that feels like fantasy more than it feels like hard sci-fi. So take that as you will. But really, I like just about everything. I mean, I'll read mystery, horror, thrillers, romance. I really like comic books and graphic novels. I mean, I'm kind of sitting in front of a shelf full of graphic novels right now, so I'm sure that's a big clue. But all of those things, I really like certain kinds of nonfiction. I like civics and history and economics. I really enjoy reading about those things and finding out the histories of how we've kind of ended up with the modern world that we live in. That's something that's always fascinating for me. I don't really do extreme horror. I'm not a fan of that. And I don't really do super cozy fantasy. So I'm not really big on the extremes. But really most other things, I enjoy reading. And I saw another YouTuber, her channel's called McKenna Loves Content, do this last question that she sort of added to the newbie tag, and I thought it was appropriate for me, and I wanted to touch on it a little bit. She did a question number 11 where she talked about her collection a little bit, and I really liked that because one of the things that goes hand in hand with what I said before about depression stealing reading from me for all those years is also that it stole my collection from me. At one point in my life, I had probably 6,000 books in my home and really had my own just library that I surrounded myself with. And those books meant a lot to me. And when I really started falling away from reading and getting depressed, I just got rid of them. So many books, so many irreplaceable books, just beautiful hardcovers that I loved, stories that meant a lot to me. I got rid of my entire comic collection. I got rid of my gaming collection. I just purged almost everything from my life. And it sucked. It was terrible. I hated it. But for a long time, I told myself it was the right thing to do. And now as I've started to rebuild my collection, because I do not want to end on a sad note, as I've started to rebuild my collection, I've started to bring books back into my life. I got to tell you that that's just been a wonderful feeling, and I've absolutely loved it. And I am looking forward to continuing on that trend and just rebuilding everything that I lost over those years. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and I hope that someone joins me on this journey. So that's a few minutes about me and why I want to make this channel. For now, I'm kind of thinking about this channel as like my chair on the porch of an old general store where I can sit and spin yarns or talk about other people's yarns. And anyone who happens by is welcome to join. So for now, that's it. Be good to each other, and I will see you next time.